Okay, let's do one more of those. We'll count the rows, 1, 2, 3, 4. Count the columns, 1, 2, 3. So then and both of those are the same. So 4 rows. And I'm going to leave this. So you're going to set it up just like this, because some of those are going to have expressions in them. And then you just pay attention. And then notice, since -1 plus -1 is -2, that won't use the full thing. P plus -6 is just P plus -6, or you can write it as P subtract 6. So that was there. 5Q plus 5 plus 2P. I'm going to put the variables together, so I'm going to put, but you can write it exactly here. I'll just write it just like this. 5Q plus 5, there's that expression, plus 2P. Then you just keep doing that. These are not the same. So you add them as separate terms. -2P plus 4Q. M plus 5 plus -3MP. You can write it as subtract when you bring it down. Anyway, I'm going to move on from here, but you get the idea, right? If the variables are not the same, or if the variables don't have the same exponent, they can't be added. You leave them as that separate fraction. So for example, I'm going to erase this in just a second. Let's pretend that said 2P right there. It doesn't, but let's pretend it did. You cannot add 2P to the first to -3P to the second, so that would still be two terms. It's not. It's 2M. Instead of plus negative, I'm going to put subtract 3P squared. I'll just finish this off. Since this is 0 plus Q minus 5, you don't have to add the plus 0. Ooh, Q plus -3Q would just be -2Q. -5M subtract 2P. And then lastly, MP plus 2Q. Now, there is a chance I could have made a clerical error someplace. If I did, forgive me and just correct it on your own paper. All right, now we're going to come down to number 9. And notice there are 3 matrices. Are they all the same? So 3 rows by 2 columns, 3 rows by 2 columns, 3 rows by 2 columns. Because they're the same size, you can indeed add, and they follow the order of ops. So addition or subtraction, whichever comes first, left to right. So we're going to do -1 plus -5. Then we'll subtract, if this will let me. Then we'll subtract that -1. So I'm going to put I'm going to do this, the final answer. So what we're going to have, so I'm going to put a subtract sign in there. Okay, so -1, let me do it this way. -1 plus -5 minus -1. So notice -1 plus -5 is -6. And then subtract a negative, let me make this bigger. Subtract a negative means add 1. So -6 plus 1 would have -5. All right, so now we're going to go on to the next 2 So we have 5 plus 6 subtract -2. So 5 plus 6, that equals 11. Subtract -2. So subtract a negative means adding a positive. So that's 11 plus 2. So that would be 13 right there. And then you just go ahead. If you can do that on your own, that's great. So now we're back to this. 2 plus -5, or 2 subtract 5. And then we've got the subtract 5. Well, if you look at -5, I was going to almost do the reverse. So -5 subtract 5 is -10. So now you've got a 2 subtract 10. So that should be -8. Let me double check and make sure that I read that right. So 2 plus -5, that's -3. -3 subtract 5 is indeed -8. So good. That's what we have. Now we have, not that, 2 plus 5, so that's 7. 7 subtract -1, so we have 2 plus 5, that's 7. Subtract -1, well, that's plus 1. So now we have positive 8 right here. And I'm going to erase this part right there. And then lastly, -6 plus 2, which is -4. And then we have subtract -2. That's adding 2. -4 plus 2 is -2. And then finally, and I should have done this since I was doing that. All right, 4 plus -5. Well, that's going to be -1. Subtract, oops, that should have been blue. Subtract 5. Well, that's going to be -6. That's your answer. There we go. So let's find another one of those. See if there's one. Did I put one with? I did. So let's go down to number 13. So yeah, we've got an add and we've got a subtract. And we have 4 rows, 3 columns again. Wow, they really like the 4 rows, 3 columns. And then we're going to simplify it over here. I'm going to pause this while I write. Okay, so we've got -6a plus 4c. Those can't be added. So -6a plus 4c. And then we're adding to that. No, we're subtracting 5c. Well, 4c subtract 5c is -1c. So we're going to have -6a subtract 1c. All right, so that's for that one. Now we're going to, well, 0 plus 2a subtract 4 is just 2a subtract 4. And now we're going to subtract 5b. Whoops, left off the 5. Well, none of those can be added. So that right there will just be 2a subtract 4 subtract 5b. Okay, so now we've got -b plus -c. -b, I'll put subtract c, means the same thing. Now we're going to subtract oh, this is A plus C. So when we subtract it, there's two things that have to be put in parentheses. We're subtracting both of those. So there are no other negative b's, so we know a negative b comes over. I should have done that in black, sorry. And then negative c, subtract that c is negative 2c. And then what we have left is we have a subtract a. Okay, can all you see that? So we have a negative c, subtract c. That's like saying negative 1, subtract 1, that's negative 2. But in this case, it's negative 2c. All right. So that's what you're doing on these. And I'm going to do it quietly now so it's shorter. Wow. Here, I need to somehow make this bigger so you can see what I'm doing. And man, none of those can be combined. This A has a B attached, so that's not the same. Yeah, so this is going to be a really long one right here. So 2A plus B minus 3AB. And now we're going to subtract a negative. Ooh, I didn't put that. Subtract a negative becomes add 6C. So be careful to not do what I almost just did. All right. Then we have C subtract 3 plus B. Subtract negative 4C. Ooh, well, that's nice. We've got this C, subtract a negative 4C. That will be 5C. Subtract 3 plus B. Okay, and then we've got 0 plus B plus A, so that's just B plus A. Subtract 0, so we really didn't even have to write that, so that just means B plus A. All right, hopefully you kind of get the idea on this one.